Members Committee meeting, and I will call for apologies, and we have one from Councillor Everest. Would someone like to move, please? Mayor Liz, seconded Councillor Cameron. All those in favour, please say aye. Carried, thank you. Extraordinary business? Declarations of interest? Mayor Liz, your lights. Oh, sorry, it's just gone off now. Yeah. Confirmation of the minutes of our meeting from the 19th to the 11th. How's everyone's memories? Any alterations on page 3? 4? If not, would someone like to move, please? Councillor Cameron, Councillor Gilkinson, all those in favour? Carried, thank you. Okay, basically now I will hand over and make my job very easy and welcome team to the first meeting of 2026, and I'll hand over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much as well, again, that we can talk to you in regard of the matters related to Three Waters working here at Ashburton District Council. In regards of item 5, Three Waters operations, we put up 2 issues we had, luckily after the Christmas period in a way. The Methven water supply, where we had a failure in our plant similar to Chertsey. Short after another, we went through and spoke to all of the parties. We have received incidents reports. We incorporated this in our work, what we have done. We had meetings with ACL in regards of how can we improve the situations and what caused the issue. So this is all rectified in regards of putting more points in place where we get earlier alerts when systems failing, so that we have a plan B in place in that regard, and we will follow that through as well for all of our other plants as well, so that we are not relying on one source when this is failing, so that we have another one to get an early alert if something is going wrong in the system.
Can I just ask a question around the timing of that? So did the problem occur at 7 a.m. that morning, and then you weren't alerted till sort of about 9 p.m. that night? I'm just thinking because I was getting quite a few messages, and it was more towards the evening when the water flow was quite low, and I think by about 11 o'clock that night there was no water at all.
Yeah, through the chair. Yeah, the actual event happened around 10:30 in the evening, and we only were able to discover it at 7 o'clock in the morning when the alerts from the pillars were actually received. There was no alert from the plant itself, but there was an alert from the pillars when there was low pressure in the system. That's when we found it out.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
So going forward now that whatever happened has been rectified, but there's also been a change made, so if the problem does occur again, it's an earlier
correct.
Yeah.
With Kinetic and as well with ACL, with the people who are operating our plants.
Councillor Wilson.
The lightning strike, and it's pretty common knowledge that if you have a lightning strike, you're in trouble because it just keeps on giving. Is it going to be a problem in the future as well, or if they?
We hope not. We have as well at the moment got a quote in regards to make it safe, but we will push that out to next financial year because we have budget constraints for this financial year, but we are looking into that as we speak. So. Any further question on item 5? Item number 6, page number 6, our projects. Though we are well in our finalizing of all of our projects in regard of the capital delivery on the water treatment plants, the installation on UV and filtration upgrades. The last on the list is Tromor, which will be commissioned this week or today. So we have the people out today, and then we are in a good place in regards of having addressed all the compliance issues in the field around our water treatment plants and complying in that regard. We still have to deal with the back office, and Andy will give us shortly an update on that as well. Similar in regards of the renewals program, that's well underway, and we are finishing most of them by March already this financial year, which is a fantastic outcome that all of our capital works program will be delivered by the end of the financial year.
Thank you. That is great. I just had one question. The Tynwald Bore feasibility assessment, and it finished February, so I know it was before, after this had been written, but just wondering how that went, because there is a bit of commentary through Tynwald just on that supply, if you like. So.
Yeah, so as we said at the moment, we haven't had the report. It hasn't arrived through. We are obviously keeping a watching brief on nitrates in Tynwald. So just for the committee's benefit, with the last two grab samples in January were 9.45 and 9.19. We've also got an online instrument which we're monitoring as well. So that is continuous reading. And this morning at 9 o'clock, it was 9.56.
I'll be honest, even though it's under the limit, I'm uncomfortable with that. So I'd like that assessment to sort of know the outcome of it. Because we wouldn't have put any budget in either for that well, have we? Or
well, yeah. So the water service delivery plan includes a budget of 1.13 million thereabouts for 28-29 financial year. That is not necessarily a bore. The project is called Tynwald Nitrate Management. So because we don't know if the solution is a bore yet. But yeah, I mean, there's a potential if those trends start to accelerate, we might have to bring that project forward.
Yeah, thank you.
Maybe in addition to what Andy just mentioned, we are started as well to do some further sampling in the network itself, because Tynwald is mainly a mixed water supply. So we are providing through the bridge here water from Ashburton into the Tynwald network as well. So to get an understanding how the water in the network behaves in regards of nitrate levels, we just started with a sampling to get a better feeling for it.
The new supply that's going in once the bridge is built, will that hook into that existing Tynwald supply, or will that be a new feeder, if you like, for that side of Tynwald Moor?
No, it'll just be a trunk main into the wider network. So it'll flow both ways potentially.
Yeah.
But it will be, I think the sizing for it was about a 300 diameter trunk main. The existing pipe over the bridge is a 200. So it'll just make everything a bit more robust.
Cool. Councillor Cameron.
If you go back over 5 years or 10 years, has there been a gradual increase in nitrate levels in that Tynwald water supply? So what were they last year? Like, is it a market increase from last year? Or?
Look, I don't know offhand, but there is an upward trend. And that's what really prompted some of the early work that we've been doing on this bore, because the first bit of work we did was to try and forecast when it might breach the MAV. And Aqualink's work indicated that was going to be sort of 2029 to 2033. The trending we're looking at now looks like it's going to be the early part of that period.
Which is not far away if you want to put an alternative
away.
in. If you look at your aquifers, your deeper aquifers, and it says they may be fine for decades to come, how far down are they? Like, is it feasible drilling?
Yeah, so that's the work that Aqualink are doing right now. It's
Okay.
just to see where that water is and what the likelihood is of getting a sufficient yield. So we'll know more about that when we get that report.
And what's the ETA for that?
Well, I thought it was end of Feb, but maybe I've put something wrong in the agenda.
Okay, and can I ask one more question, please?
Certainly.
When I look in the report, it's talking about, you've got all these UV filters on, which is marvellous, and they've all been done, but we're waiting for the quality assurance documentation. Is that like when you get something new and the electricians give you a certificate of compliance post they install a night store or whatever. Is that sort of thing?
To the chair, that's correct.
So why are we waiting for that? Shouldn't that just be done after they do the job?
Yeah, it's part of the process. It normally takes 2 weeks to 3 weeks after they try to observe the plant working before they finally certify it.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
Councillor Wilson.
With respect to the Timor one, all the options been looked at? Obviously, the different site, deeper well, and treated. Are those all being looked at the same time?
Yeah, pretty much. We haven't ruled out anything at this point. We're just trying to sort of cast the net around to see what the options are. The difficulty with going too far away means we're talking about a new treatment plant potentially. So ideally what we want to do first is look at what we can do at the existing site, whether that's drilling a bore, a deeper bore, or even considering treatment. Treatment's probably not cost effective, but
Because one of the problems is that site, because it's not our fault, but it's become through the MAR work and the HH Wets work, that's become the worst site to perhaps put a well at, because you're in the nitrate hotspot, aren't you? That's the problem with that site. It's been now recognised that it's a hotspot, not because of contamination, because of soil type and all that sort of stuff. So that's why I asked those questions. But I'm sure Aqualink will know all that and be looking into that. Yep.
Councillor Hooper.
Thank you. So, Andy, if the nitrates continue to rise around the Timor bore, and it gets to a point where, you know, we need to do something about it, will you close that and then just use the bridge main on its own? And what does that mean for Timor residents regarding lots of pressure and things like that?
yeah, so I mean that's certainly part of our interest in getting the bore, the pipeline across the bridge. We anticipate that the actual level of service will improve for Timor if we were solely reliant on pipes, but it still doesn't get rid of the full resilience story around having a source on the Timor side. So our preference would be to have the additional pipe across the bridge plus retain some sort of source. But at the moment, yeah, you're right. If we turned off the Timor bore, I'm anticipating that Timor would actually have probably an improvement in terms of level of service from the bridge.
From the current bridge?
From the new bridge.
What about the current bridge of what we've got set up?
That definitely we definitely get pressure drops on the western side of Timor.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor Liz, sorry.
So can I just ask a question on the Drumore pipeline renewals? Has that all been sorted out with, you seem to be having a few delays from Kiwi Rail. Is that all sorted now and approved?
All sorted.
Yeah.
Yep, all in place.
And all good to go? And just a comment on the water pipeline renewals. They've been working down my street, and everyone's very happy with the contractors doing a good job. They even got scones from one of the ladies down the road the other day.
Great to hear. Thank you very much. We will let them know as well.
Councillor Cameron. Okay.
Maybe I would guide you to one of the other points on that agenda item, the assessment of communities' access to drinking water. This is new, coming out of the legislation, and I'll give you some paragraphs out of that one. So under section 69 of the Act, each council must inform itself about the access that each community in its district has to drinking water services by conducting an assessment of drinking water services. These assessments must consider the drinking water services available to communities throughout the council's district, including private drinking water supplies, community-owned or community-operated drinking water supplies, but not including domestic self-supplies. And this needs to be with DIA by the 1st of July 2026. They are talking here as well under section 71. We have to do something similar for wastewater and stormwater, but that's not due by the 1st of July 2029.
So is this linked to the report that Renee brought us through property with all our halls and, I don't quite know what was on the list now, but various public facilities that are out there that are council owned or council use a water supply from that particular area?
Yeah, the best way I could describe it is that effectively, as a council has got three hats to wear. The first hat is as a water supplier. We're obviously providing the water to public water supplies. The other hat we have is the actual legislative responsibilities for something like this assessment, and that's where the TA has to do this assessment. And then the third hat is as a property owner, that is providing water to others. So the information that the property team have been talking about yesterday was around that property ownership front. But there are some clear responsibilities that still remain with council as the TA, which have to be addressed, and this is actually one of those.
So, I mean, that's quite a short time frame for something new to come in, resource-wise and financially. Is it going to also stretch us with everything else we're trying to achieve at the same time frame as well?
Yeah, look, it probably will be a bit of a challenge. We're still turning our heads to how we can get that accomplished. One aspect which is in our favour is that this requirement is very similar to what was originally called the Water and Sanitary Services Assessments, which we had to do a number of years ago. And we still have that information on file. So it could be as simple as refreshing those previous assessments, obviously with a mind to anything that's changed. But yeah, we'll keep the committee updated with progress.
Thank you. Councillor Cameron.
My question was along the same lines. Is that reasonable? Did you say 31st of July 26? Is that in our water services delivery plan?
It's not part of the water service delivery plan, as Andy just mentioned. We have our documentation in place from an in-house business unit perspective, but there are the other items. One was what Annette presented yesterday, but there are other parts which we haven't covered. Normally the TA or council needs to put together, and we are working at the moment with the various parts here at council to figure that out as per Andy's explanation.
But did you say, Andy, Tamata ROI require us to do this?
Yeah, so
So that would be water service delivery, wouldn't it?
well, so the issue is that it's a TA responsibility, not a water supplier's responsibility.
And this is an ongoing responsibility that we've had previously?
Well, it's a new one. The Water and Sanitary Service Assessment sort of disappeared into the ether, but this has come back again. And I think they have to be repeated every 5 years.
3 years.
3 years.
Every
Okay.
3 years.
3 years, we have to go around all of the halls or the cemeteries or whatever where we have a drinking water source and check that they meet standards.
So this assessment is just the communities of the district. So we're not dealing with the self-suppliers on property.
No.
We're only dealing with communities. So an example might be we might have to go and assess Bar Hill, even though it's not our water supply. Council will have to assess it to make sure that how they're getting the water, is it adequate, is there any concerns around it.
Have they put a number on what they call a community? Is it like greater than 5 or?
That I couldn't tell you off the top of my head.
The wording they are using, not including domestic self-supplies. Everything else, yes.
Yeah.
Because that was
Hamish has just
1.3.
got a comment.
Yeah, I just want to underline the answer in relation to the obligations of the Territorial Authority. So the Water Services Delivery Plan is focused absolutely on how our public supplies are structured for their management and delivery. So if we had, for example, formed a regional CCO, we wouldn't be talking about the Water Services Delivery Plan other than as an owner of the assets in a governance role. But as a council, we would still have these obligations that are being discussed here. One of the confusions for us is that because we're an internal business unit on our own for public supply delivery, it feels like the obligations of the Territorial Authority are squarely inside the same tent,
Yeah.
but they're not. Although they kind of are, and I'm explaining this less clearly than I had intended. But we have obligations as a council that are quite separate from the delivery of our public supplies, which we just happen to have chosen to be an internal business unit.
Councillor Cameron.
And my reference just goes back to our conversation yesterday, where if we're talking about the same 45 properties or 45 communities, it was 1.3 million. And that was done, we were not aware of that coming up, which is,
No, it was 150,000.
oh, was
from
it?
the top
Well, what
of
was the
my head.
1.3 million?
Yeah. Yeah, it was
130,000.
130,000.
Oh, well.
Yeah, wasn't.
Withdraw and retract.
Yeah. Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
The way I'd read it would be that it's aimed because there was a couple of water supplies that were run sort of privately up in the North Island that actually were failing badly, but no one would look after them. So it's sort of, I totally understand. It's not our supplies that we run through our group. It's the other community supplies, and they should almost be registered by the end. So you should easily be able to find them, isn't it? Because that's anybody. I think is it 25 or something? Anybody that does more than 25 people is a classed as a supply.
Yes, I don't know the number 25, but they not registered yet. They have time till 2028 to be registered and then to comply with drinking water standards.
And if you think back, I mean, all these changes stem from a public supply at Havelock North, and that's what's driven most of this change I think we're facing today, the outcome of that. Hamish.
Just to clarify, through Mr. Chair, my recollection is that when this obligation to register these suppliers was first became a requirement, I seem to recall Te Mata Aroai talking about 75,000 of them across New Zealand. So there is a huge number, and initially there was quite a tight time frame for all these to be registered, and the sheer impracticality of doing that at a national level became apparent, and that's why the registration date has been pushed out. I seem to remember it was delayed a couple of years for these small suppliers, just because across New Zealand there is just so many of them. So a very big piece of work at a national level.
I'm not sure. I mean, we've got Rangitata huts, Rakaya huts, Bar Hill. Would there be many more that have any number on them? Oh, I wouldn't have.
Look, I don't know, but the assessment requirements, even though we've already got our supplies underway, they still have to form part of the assessment.
Yeah.
It's just the answer's easy to provide.
Yes, exactly.
I just wanted a clarification. So when we're talking private, so we're talking privately owned water schemes or private land that supplies water for a community?
Both. So private schemes who are operated privately, we need to provide that feedback as per the legislation back to DIA. And as well, if they are supplying water to someone else or we are supplying water for a campground, falls under the same legislation.
And just one other. So given that they've now clearly loosened the numbers just about, if you are a farm who supplied multiple households, do you then become the supplier, which was what was originally proposed, and then they took it away, and it sounds like without the number it's back?
I need to look into it. I have it here, but I need to check the information again in regards of what the level is in regards of the supplies when you are a scheme supplier as well. If you are providing that to 2 or 3 houses, I think they lifted that. It was in the past really you had to provide then as well a drinking water safety plan, and you are falling under the legislation, but they have done some changes to that.
Thank you.
Jumping to 6.3 on page 8, the wastewater project status. We are just finalizing the Rakaya wastewater treatment plant control panel upgrade, though that will be commissioned next week. And then this project is finalized as well, similar in regards of what's happening in the renewals program. As mentioned before, we are well ahead of that one, and we will finalize that latest by the end of March. Maybe handing over to Andy on the wastewater servicing concepts.
Yeah, so that work has now been provided. We'd be looking to just include the output as part of the wider strategy. So when we bring the strategy to the committee, the work here will be included in that work.
Any questions there?
In regards of the AMP trade waste agreement, that's all signed now with AMP, and we have sent out the invoice, and I think we have some numbers in our accounts today or tomorrow. And we have a startup meeting with AMP on that project on the 6th of March, and we'll report back to you on the next meeting in March.
Right.
Jumping to 6.5, stormwater projects. Maybe Andy, you can cover that too.
Yeah, this is just the conclusion of that work that we had on the industrial sites assessment. We delayed the receiving the GIS tool until we could provide some resourcing around the getting it into the system. So that's now happened, and we've got it available to us. I understand the stormwater engineer is making use of it already. So. Okay, so just talking through the drinking water compliance. So the report in the agenda is the full calendar year, but we're saying it's preliminary at this stage because it's only been based on adding in the last quarter. There is some review of the annual rules that just needs to be checked before we can sort of finalise it. There is a wee bit of a movement. You'll see a slight reduction for Ashburton compliant from 67 to 65. That's just a facet of the fact that we were commissioning plants during that period. There is a slight shift in compliance for Hines, a 1 percentage point, and again, that's just the notification that the plant was operating through that last quarter. We are looking, or there was a consultation being done by TA towards the end of last year, and they were looking to change the reporting cycle back to align with the July-June period, which is good news for us. We didn't actually understand the calendar reporting. So apparently that will kick in from 1 July 27.
Any questions there?
There was some consultation done on the drinking water quality assurance rules. Now, I haven't provided any detail on that because the rules are quite voluminous, but we've provided a copy of the officer submission to the committee, so it's on Stella for your consideration. Some of those consultations, they are quite technical in nature, so we don't tend to elevate them up to council level. It's just usually an officer submission. All good? Right. RMA consents compliance. So the majority of our consents are compliant. We received 3 new compliance monitoring reports from Environment Canterbury since the last meeting. There was a discharge to air at Wilkins Road, which was deemed compliant. We had the overflow from the storage pond was assessed as compliant. That's a fairly low level one. It only is a problem if we use it. And then the stormwater discharge consent for Ashburton, it was assessed as non-compliant, no action required, but we have actually had, since even preparing the agenda, a final CMR, which is basically saying it's at full compliance. So that's a good outcome. There's also mentioned there the 2 existing ones, which is all covered under the action plan, so I won't necessarily go into that.
Any questions on that? Councillor Wilson?
It's been in the news lately where a city is pouring its shit into the sea and on the beach. and we have a wastewater treatment by the river. It's just a level of comfort. Can any of our effluent escape to the Ashburton River?
The way it operates, we have discharge consents that allow us to discharge to an overflow swale. I think the big critical difference is that what we are providing down there is treated wastewater. So if it was to make its way to the river, it would be fairly well treated, and it's also usually an event where the Ashburton River is in flood anyway. They are the type of events that cause us to use the overflow. So I think there's a fair bit of mitigation around that. In recent years, I'm not aware that in the last decade or so, I think we've only made, so the discharge channel is about 6 kilometres long, and it runs alongside the river, and then at some point it then goes and discharges directly into a braid. I'm not aware that that's made it to the river on very many occasions in that time, because it usually filters out through the swale.
That's good to hear that we've got a level of comfort that we're not doing that, because it's not something you would want to do ever.
Because of our system, we'll never have that wet wipe problem with them ending up on the beach and that sort of thing, because that's all taken out at Wilkins Road before it gets to Ocean Farm. So there is a level of comfort there as well. So.
Yeah, maybe a word around the wastewater standards coming into force or into law on the 19th of December 2025 by Taumata Arowai. Has not a direct impact to us at that point of time. It's mainly for renewals of resource consent for discharge from wastewater treatment plants. Can only affect us if we see anything coming out of the wastewater strategy and we need to change the approach on Wilkins Road on the discharge side of it, that we maybe need a variation to resource consent. But that's a part we will discuss when we have the report in hand by mid-year. So June, July, we will report back to you on that.
Councillor Wilson.
This is the where they've talked about you've got to assess the standard of your land and the ability of it to hold nutrients and all that sort of stuff, isn't it? Is that what it's about?
Yeah, that's in regard of the whole discharge to land, to water, and this will be assessed if you are applying for a new resource consent, and if you apply and really accept all the parts coming out of that legislation, you will get automatically a 35-year resource consent.
Okay, just moving on to the financials. I won't necessarily go through this in detail, but generally we are okay. There are a few ups and downs in the income area, and I think I've explained what's causing some of those. I did note in the income in wastewater that there's a favourable variance in the fees line item. So that's the fees we get from the septic disposal at Wilkins Road. I'm not keen to try and predict if that's going to stay a favourable variance at the end. I'd rather give that a couple more months before I make any sweeping statements about that. In terms of operating expenditure, just to alert you at the moment that the group water is very close to the overall budget, but the actual the value shown, or the variance shown, is being masked by some it's masking a year-to-date unfavourable variance in the maintenance contracts line, and that's currently being offset by some favourable variances in interest. It's not clear to me what the trend is for the interest for the year, so we're just keeping an eye on that at the moment, just to see how it tracks. Montalto water supply is tracking slightly below. Wastewater is currently unfavourable, and again, we're looking at those ones. Interestingly, the electricity is one of the drivers for that unfavourable. So again, we're just monitoring these at this stage.
Councillor Wilson.
I'm not surprised at electricity, because if you talk to any farmer with with the increase in line charges, it's really caught everybody out because we didn't realise how big a cost it is, how much it's added. It's sort of added 30-40% to your power bill, and I'm not surprised that we're having the same thing. So it'd be worth reviewing that because it is significant. It's very significant that's happening out there.
Yeah, one of the difficulties for us from an electricity standpoint is basically if we have a hot, dry summer, then the water supply electricity budget goes through the roof. If we have a very wet, long winter, the electricity budget in wastewater goes through the roof. It's sort of one of those very reactive things depending on what we're producing in water and how much wastewater we're trying to get rid of. So it is a wee bit fickle to try and predict.
And maybe in addition to what Andy just mentioned as well, with a change in regards of our water treatment plants through UV treatment, they need all electricity, which we haven't had in the past. So this is as well take a big factor in regards of the power bill.
So just continuing on to capital expenditure, the group water capital spend is well ahead of the year-to-date budget, and this is due to the projects getting underway on 1 July, but also we did tender very early, so we hit the more favourable part of the year. So we're probably forecasting a 1.8 million favourable variance at the end of the year. Wastewater, same story again, and at the moment I'm forecasting 540,000 as a favourable variance at year end. The stormwater is currently favourable. We're hoping that we'll be able to nudge that for the remaining months of the year.
So those favourable variances, how's that going to be treated with the transition to ring fencing? Is there a reserve account for this, or is it? Yeah.
Not in the capital area
Yeah.
because we haven't raised the money. So if you think
Just-
of capital as
yeah.
being debt funded,
Yeah.
if we go to market and there's two real reasons for variances, isn't there? One is that we undershoot the work. What we're hearing now with the early tendering, and we were delighted to see that 12 months ago that it was on track to deliver that. But then if you tender the work and it comes in under budget,
Just don't borrow as much.
there's a variance against the budget, but all we do is raise debt at the level to match the cost of the work. So there's no residual money floating somewhere. We just don't raise the debt. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Handing over to Hernando on the procurement.
So under item 10.0 procurement, we are still in the process of, we have no current procurement, but we plan to do procurement by around April and May, just in time to be able to award it in July, just like last year, so that we will be able to finish early also the year after. We have contracted some small projects that are currently ongoing, like the Rakaya water metering. That's the 350 meters that we plan to install. We have already installed around 180 today, and we have already started receiving data from the 180 meters that we have installed. It's giving us data every 30 minutes from the individual residents that the meters were installed.
So, and it's great we're getting this data. The one downside is it is going to highlight some areas that we may need to spend some money because all the leaks won't be on private property. Some of them will be council responsibility, and then of course they're unbudgeted because you don't know what you don't know. Are we just okay with that moving forward as we do more water metering through the district? It's a bit of a rollout program, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely what you just mentioned. This will highlight leaks on private property and leaks as well on our network, which will and needs to be addressed. And when we get a better understanding, we will review that and come back to you with a renewals program upgraded to this effect.
Hamish?
This is a really important point because it challenges budgets. And I know in the variance reports across the organisation in the area of water, and I was just reading one this morning before it comes out to council for the end of January, and one of the reasons for some overruns in the operating of both water and wastewater is reference to repairing leaks that have been detected via the leak detection service. And what we will have to do in our as officers, we've got to balance detecting a leak and the urgency of the repair with resources to do so. And we don't have the capacity, budget-wise, to simply repair it because we discover it without changing the work program to deal with the priority issues. So it is a significant area of cost management that is going to be required as we learn more and more about the leaks.
There will be counted by some front-end savings because as you fix a leak, there's less power to supply that water, there's less treatment and those sorts of things, but they won't balance out the cost of fixing it.
No, they don't.
There will be some front-end savings as
And
well.
that's what we're seeing in the commentary that I was reading this morning, that our maintenance contractor gets the information about a leak. We want them to fix it, to solve the problem, but it's causing upward pressure on budgets because of that unplanned work. So we're going to have a discipline internally about the budget is the budget is the budget, and if we find priorities through the leak detection, for example, we're going to have to think really carefully about how we adjust other priorities to live within the budget.
Because there'll still be those more serious ones that crop up time to time as well that do need to be fixed that day, basically.
Of course, and of course the budget plans for a certain amount of that, but it's where that detection work shows things that over and above the way in which we allow for it in the budget, that creates real pressure for cost overrun in the budgeted area, which we're trying to manage. So this is a very important discussion because it goes to the heart of managing within budgets. Yeah.
Councillor Wilson, sorry.
It's to do with water metering, because obviously we were talking about it at the annual plan of, the potentially 3.5 million or 7 million if you do over 2 years water meter everything. Has there been some work done onto, I'm not talking about the physical putting them in, I'm talking about the expectation of when you've put them in, the system we get, so that, if it's the interaction, so if I can go on here and type in my address and it pops up and shows me a graph, that sort of, because that's the end game of it, or the information you can draw out of it. Has there been work done to what we expect to get at the end of it? Because you don't want to be putting them in and then think, bugger, these ones don't do what we want them to do.
You are spot on with that one. We are working through that as we speak. We had yesterday, after the workshop in the morning, already a meeting with another company who are providing that service, the integration as well, where you have an app on your phone. So we are going through that. We discussed as well possible business cases we are putting together in regards of water losses and metering. If you are reducing your water losses in the network, this could defer quite a big amount of capital investment in regards of future growth upgrades, and so you will see savings then throughout that process into the future as well, because if you have a water loss of 50% in the network, you are going down to 25. You have more water available for growth and other parts in the district.
And that goes to people as well, because if people can see, if they see that they're twice what their neighbour is, they will clearly take steps. They just don't want to be seen to be the bad boy as was.
Councillor Hooper.
Thank you. While we're on the water metering theme, Hamish, this may be directed towards you. I know previous councils have said that it's all about leak detection, but as we roll out water meters, when do we actually address charges, and would that initiate consultation? Would that be brought up at a committee meeting here, or what's the process?
It can be raised here. Ultimately a decision for council, although potentially you would have to see how the terms of reference for the business unit governance structure works, council may be prepared to have that decision under a delegated authority, but currently a decision for council can be raised from anywhere. It could come through this committee as a matter that the committee would like considered. The current policy position is very clear from council. They're not planning to do that. We've got no budgets constructed around doing that. It is a fundamental change, one which we can expect to have significant public interest, and one which we would say must be consulted on, and you'll receive a lot of feedback if history and other introductions of such a measure is anything to go by. But in the end, for council to resolve, and it can come from this committee, or council could generate that piece of work themselves if they felt so fit. So could come from anywhere, but a significant piece of community work will follow if council wishes to pursue it.
Yeah, sure. Would we expect maybe a nod from the experts at the table that, look, there are some pockets of our community who are taking the mick and using way too much, and maybe it's opportunity to look at it from that once they're in and trials are done and
I think the policy setting is so clear that you shouldn't expect officers to challenge it lightly, because we understand the political and community realities of that challenge. I think as officers we would probably support volumetric charging. You know, it's a very easy argument to make that the people who use the water should pay for it, but that's a very officer centric view. The political and the community reality and the reaction to that policy change will be profound. So I don't think you should expect it to come from officers. You should expect to contemplate that change from a political perspective.
I think, you know, as we move forward and that rollout gets closer to completion, maybe that's a conversation that could be had at that time.
I was thinking
Yes.
more once they're actually in and we're getting some data and some feedback, and we can see some spikes and things, and we're thinking, okay, you know, there's some people here on a free ride and others are almost getting penalised because of it.
They're
Do we say-
subsidising the other. It's-
Correct, yeah.
I just remember the introduction of the trial in Methven, and there was overwhelming feedback, and the accusation was that it was the thin end of the wedge, that you're putting them in because you want to charge volumetrically. You're not having that conversation with us because you're just talking about leak detection. So there will be a significant political matter to work through if council's policy position changes. Yeah.
Councillor Wilson.
Would it not be prudent to be looking at that for the next long-term plan? Because that, if we're flagging it now, the long-term plan is we do go out consultation, we do have a long-term view rather than, it's not an annual plan discussion at all, it's a long-term plan view, isn't it?
If we want to do that,
If you wish to do so, it's not clear to us that is council's wish at the moment. It's not clear to us that is
No,
a
that's
position.
fine. That's what I'm saying. That's a bit. I would support Councillor Hoop, but I would support it in a way that it's not aimed at a volumetric charge for all the water you use. It's aimed at the extraordinary use above a quite a high limit, which would instantly take the person who's using. You know, I think that we use about 600 litres a day or somewhere. Would be around about that, is it? Something like that. Would be the average or slightly less. If you had over 2 cubes, a limit, that will be the extraordinary use. People will be using 20 cubes of water because they have a big leak or whatever, and we don't do anything about it.
One opportunity, if council's will, is to have this as a matter for the long-term plan, would be for us to give you some advice as to which part of the policy settings might be the place to have that conversation through the development of the long-term plan. It could be the revenue and finance policy, I suspect. But equally, there might be another mechanism for council to consider whether you wish to include such a proposal in the long-term plan. So we'll give some thought to that.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Maybe in addition to that, what Hamish just mentioned is other council went through that process. I know currently New Plymouth went through that, so we can learn a little bit from them as well, how they went out in regards of public consultation, the benefits they received and the options they put forward to the community can be shared with you as well.
Thank you. Councillor Cameron.
Just a word of caution is that we did promise there'd be no volumetric charging for water, and we did say what in this council, and I understand this is a new council, but I do think there'd be some significant pushback on that, given that some of us made that commitment at that time.
Yeah, I think it's a conversation. We'll park that one because I think it's a conversation we'll have at a different time, and we'll have a report and we'll thrash it out. Mayor Liz.
And I was just going to say, it's a conversation we can have once Ashburton and Tynwald have all their meters in as well.
Yeah.
Because I don't think you could charge.
But if we do it at LTP, we can say year 3 of the LTP, we could introduce that, and that's so the budgets can be done accordingly. So, yeah.
So I think
So
LTP is probably the right time to talk
Yeah,
about that.
so I think Hamish has had that message, and something will come back for us to have a look at, either here or council. I'm not sure which. Probably council. I think is probably.
What would you say? I mean, this conversation has been helpful.
Yep.
And what we'll turn our mind to is how what mechanism, what's the channel for that conversation in the LTP, and then the will of council will prevail. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you. That branched off somewhere you didn't think, didn't it?
Anything else in regards of procurement?
So just, you're going out early with that next lot of procurement. Just next, or do you know, you'll obviously know what projects they are, little list of those at the next meeting, you know, just with what projects are for the next financial year and those sorts of things. Yep.
Yeah, we'll put that.
Yep. Cool.
Then coming to item 11, page 14, water service delivery plan and implementation. So we are working through that as we speak. We looked already in regards of our in-house proposal for the business unit and the team structure. And at the moment we have various discussions with other departments, specifically with finance in regards of ring fencing and with strategy and policy in regards of the policies and the bylaw requirements we need to put in place. I'm in contact, for example, with Waima Kariri to line us a little bit up where they are sitting, where we are sitting, and I had a meeting 2 weeks ago, and we are nearly on the same page and on the same time frame what they are doing, where we are with our approach on that one. So this is an ongoing project, and I will provide updates as we go on that one. In addition, as per in the report, we received from DIA a quarter monitoring report requirement for the water service delivery plans, and for the first quarter, which is due in April, so from the 1st of January to the 31st of March, and they would like to get some guidance in regards of progress updates, where we are with it. It's a short form here, and then as well an expected activity for the next quarter. So this is what we provide back to them in April, and we will give you first hand of it before we are sending it out. So you will see it at that meeting or the earlier meeting before we are sending it to DIA.
Through the chair, if I can just add that in the water services delivery plan, we did allow for 2 additional staff in the next year. And one of them, I think we discussed yesterday, is a finance report, a resource in the finance team. And work will be starting to recruit for that position for next year. And there'll be another position yet to be confirmed and determined. It's going to be based on the Commerce Commission information that we receive to figure out exactly what that resource will be to assist us with our Commerce Commission requirements and reporting expectations.
Hamish?
Just to one tiny elaboration from what Neil said in terms of the financial person with a sole focus on water, which is in the water service delivery plan and the budget from 1 July. We have internally decided to bring that role, the process to recruit that role forward to now, and it's a significant need inside the business, which has become really apparent through the annual planning work in the finance team, but also in terms of no one yet with the capacity to give real attention to the ring fencing requirements of the legislation, etc., etc. By the time we end up advertising, recruiting, and getting someone here, they will only be here a month early. So it felt like the right thing to do was to slightly bring that forward.
And the importance around it being LTP planning it virtually.
All of that. And we're also conscious that there are a number of near neighbours who are also moving to have specific water financial people in their teams, and we don't want to not be there at the front end of the choices around our people available. So we have just moved, while Neil's right, it is essentially from 1 July that you may see them here from 1 June because we've moved it slightly further forward. Yep.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
It's in the same, I'm just looking at the terms of reference for this committee. We're talking about setting up the water services unit, but we don't have the governance set up to govern the unit. So, and I know you'll say here, and you'll know back to the council make the decision, but it needs to come from councillors down, not you guys up, because you don't set up a unit with the staff, don't set up the unit, the councillors will.
So there's a change going to come to this committee with a new terms of actually Hamish can probably talk to
I completely acknowledge the point and understand the issue. We do need to move from a Three Waters Committee with its much more narrowly defined terms of reference to establishing morphing this committee to be the governance unit for the internal business unit. And so we talked about that earlier in the week with the chair. He's asked for a report as to how we might start to do that, and that's the opportunity for everyone to feed their ideas in. And so there's issues around terms of reference, there's issues around representation, i.e. who should be on that committee, and in particular there's been loose conversations about independent members of a business unit governance group. We haven't got a decision on that, so we need to have that conversation, and clearly councillors, elected members will make the call on whether that's a good idea and what their skill set should be. In fact, we talked loosely just as late as yesterday with the chairman in relation to developing a skills matrix for you to define the skills that are needed around the governance table of a business unit. So yes, that piece of work needs to now start, and I think we're all actually saying the same thing. In the end, council will ultimately decide the terms of reference and who is on it, but the work needs to start to get that in place.
I'd like to ensure that it starts with the councillors talking about it, not the decision being made and it coming back to council, this is what we're going to do, because I feel that if you've talked to the chair, that's great, but there's a whole lot of skills around the council table that won't have even been asked about what it. And I don't want a report to come back without that outset, what they see as governance and how they see it being done. So that sets the direction, rather than the direction being set upwards. It should come from the top down.
We'll end up in the same point, but I want to make sure you're comfortable with the process. So we could, the next Three Waters Committee, we could bring a framework kind of report to get that conversation started. Maybe we could even put in a blank skills matrix, and the skills that you think are needed for the governors of the business unit, can come from yourselves. We don't want to get out of step with you. It's an important transition, and we're right at the point now where we need to deal with it.
Liz.
And the Three Waters Committee meetings have moved monthly now, haven't they? So we'll be able to progress this.
In the end, we'll be keeping in mind, in terms of our advice to you, that this council adopted an internal business unit as opposed to a separate corporate structure, and so ultimately it's still council that has the ultimate responsibility for our water services. We didn't form a CCO, but so what we've got to do is give effect to that council decision to have it inside council, but to give it the greatest opportunity to be wildly successful within that structure.
So just while we're on that, is there anyone else who's here who wants a hard copy of the water services delivery plan? Because this is our Bible that we're working to. So I don't know if everyone on the committee's got one, but if you want one, just ask and someone will make it happen for you. We can sort that out afterwards, but yeah.
It's a really good point, Mr. Chair. Many of us have a copy of this on our desk.
Yeah.
But
and
is
we
it on
refer-
Stella?
It is on Stella.
Stella,
It's
yeah.
just whatever way you want to access it.
We're on Stella?
We'll get an email sent to where it is on Stella, because I've got a hard copy. I've been looking at that, so, yeah. And yeah, it's on the website as well. Okay.
Can I just say something?
Sorry, Councillor Cameron, yes.
The Water Services Delivery Plan is indeed our guide, and it's fixed, and I understand it's fixed, and it is what it is. But I also think our budget needs to be accurate and fixed and reliable. And as a member of the council, the wider council, I'd like to see a lot of rigour around that going forward.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that'll be us as sitting here who will give it that rigour. Yep. Next steps, I think, are we...
Yeah, next steps, I mentioned already that we have lined up meetings with various parts here at council, and we are waiting from the Commerce Commission the final requirements in regards of the information disclosure. That's normally promised to have it available by the 26th of February, and we are working through a development of an implementation plan.
Our strategy, just how's that coming along? Because that is also going to be an important piece of work, I suppose. So how's that progressing?
A good question. So everything what we are going forward will be based in the water services strategy, which will be sit beside the LTP, so to speak. It's a cutout of the LTP, but my understanding we will consult at the same time if necessary. And I had my meeting with Tony already, so we are working through how we are working on it, who provides the input and helping us to shape that document.
Cool. I suppose it's sort of almost more general discussion here, but the Montalto supply, and there was some commentary around it yesterday, the backflow prevention, is there one on each property, or is there a system where that comes into the source, you can just do the one backflow preventer? Or
we are looking into that. We had yesterday afternoon as well a meeting with ACL, and I asked specifics that question in regards of how that system is run and how many backflow prevention we need. That's an absolute requirement. We need to have backflow in place as per the Act. And we are working through that, and I will report back to you at the next meeting with the costings, what we have done on the trial, what we have seen already in regards of the sampling, what we have seen. So at our next meeting in March, you will get a rundown on that.
excellent, thank you. Councillor Hooper.
Yeah, on that topic, Russell and I chatted about this earlier, because the trial with the Act House systems that's going at the moment, we were kind of thinking that was circa around 15 grand per household, but what was produced for the annual plan equated to around 44,000 per household. So is a lot of that about the backflow prevention and other stuff?
Yeah, so the 1.5 million, it's coming up in regards of site investigations to find out where we need the backflow prevention, because we don't have any proper drawings available at that point of time. Then the UV unit, the filtration and water tanks, and some contingency in the budget as well.
So those UV slap on the house numbers, are they still a circa sort of 15k? Is that roughly ballpark?
Do you, next meeting, do you want to, as well as those results from the ones you're trialling, do you want to just bring that information, because it's only a month away, and that way we can have a little Montalto area in the next meeting, if you like. That.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have definitely the costs for the current trial, which is because 3 different sites, 3 different costs, and they are vary between, for an installation of $5,000 to around about $16,000 without any contingency, what I'm telling you. So this is what we have done so far. So I will report back if I have the full costs available and get some sampling results and come back to you on it.
And even a little additional information, like because of turbidity, the filters in those are going to have to be changed more regularly than some other supplies. Is that a household cost or is it a supplier cost once those units are, so just some of that sort of information would be really useful to know for going forward.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, we've got our, have you got anything else as well as our photo gallery there for everyone? Is there anything else to add, gentlemen? No. Any further questions? No.
From just
Yeah, sorry, thank you. Yes.
with the annual plan, obviously Montalto was one of them, and it's just getting comfort around putting money in a budget that we can do it with, but also Ocean Farm. It's, you know, we've got a big number dropped in there, and it's from 2024. I looked back at the report, and it just looks like it's been pulled out of there and put in, and we had a lot of questions around that one at the time, and I see you doing a trial there on some fixed grid sprinklers. It's just probably the annual plan. It's the lack of transparency for us to see. 5 million is a huge amount of money, and it goes back to the history of installation here has been, you know, it's been a failure, you'd say. That's why we're in the place we're now. So we just don't want that to happen again. So that's why there's some, you know, what you don't know, but and that's where we're at the moment, we feel a wee bit.
Yeah, how we have put the budgets together was based on the information we had at that point of time. And time goes on now with the water strategy, now doing further trials, getting better information, getting better data. We will definitely report back to you as soon as we have that available to give you then more confidence in regards to what needs to be spent. I can't give you any other number at that point of time.
Hamish has just got a comment.
I just want to assure all elected members that we will not be proceeding with physical work or solutions for either of those, Montalto or Ocean Farm, without council having signed off the solution. So we're aware of the sensitivity of both of them. We're aware of the high cost, but equally we're completely in sync with the council's position that we must be compliant, and therefore we're driven to achieve that. All those numbers are our very best estimate placeholders, if you like, in the annual plan document to show that our intention is to do what we need to do. But the final solution, the final work and the cost of that will be subject to elected member scrutiny.
Cool. Thank you. If there's no further questions, we will close the meeting. Thank you to all those at home who have watched in.